everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. I am Brinda and the topic for this video is the Great Depression. What is a depression in an economy? A depression is a severe and prolonged downturn in economic activity. In economics, a depression is commonly defined as an extreme recession that lasts 3 or more years, or which leads to a decline in real gross domestic product of at least 10% in a given year. The US economy has experienced several recessions, but just a handful of major economic depressions, among which is the Great Depression of 1929. In times of depression, consumer confidence and investments decrease, causing the economy to shut down. Economic factors that characterize a depression include substantial increase in unemployment, a drop in available credit, diminishing output and productivity, consistent negative GDP growth, bankruptcies, sovereign debt defaults, reduced trade and global commerce, bear markets in stocks, sustained asset price volatility and falling currency values, low to no inflation or even deflation, increased saving rate among those who can save. How the Great Depression made history. The Great Depression was the worst economic downturn in the history of the industrialized world, lasting from 1929 to 1939. It began after the stock market crash of October 1929, which sent Wall Street into a panic and wiped out millions of investors. Over the next several years, consumer spending and investment dropped, causing steep declines in industrial output and employment as failing companies laid off workers. By 1933, when the Great Depression reached its lowest point, some 15 million Americans were unemployed and nearly half of the country's banks had failed. How the Central Bank of United States drove it to depression. According to Ben Bernanke, a past chairman of Federal Reserve, the central bank helped create the depression. It used tight monetary policies when it should have done the opposite. According to Bernanke, these were the Fed's five critical mistakes. The Fed began raising the Fed fund rates in the spring of 1928. It kept increasing it through a recession that started in August 1929. Monetary policy involves manipulating the available money supply in the country. In the United States, monetary policy is conducted by the Federal Reserve System, commonly called the Fed. The Fed is the nation's central bank. The Fed mandates that all national banks keep a certain percentage of their assets in one of the Federal Reserve banks, where those assets will earn no interest. This money is known as reserves, and the set percentage is called the reserve ratio. A bank's assets constantly fluctuate, so they need to quickly adjust their reserves on a regular basis. Banks are not allowed to have very little reserve, and they do not want to have excess reserve. The money isn't earning any interest, which is the reason for not maintaining excess reserves. In order to keep things balanced, a bank that suddenly has too little reserves can get an immediate short term loan from a bank that has access. The lending banks charge interest on these loans at a set rate called the federal funds rate. At the time of recession, which is a business cycle contraction, when there is general decline in economic activity as a result of widespread drop in spending. Higher Fed fund rate in such situation forces the commercial banks to lend less to the public, which further decreases demand in the economy. Interest rates payable on loans to commercial banks at such times is high, discouraging the people from taking loans. When the stock market crashed, it lost 90% of its value between 1929 and 1932, wiping millions. Even who hadn't invested their money in stock market lost money in the stock market because their banks had invested it there. Direct investors of stock market then turned to currency markets. At that time, the gold standard supported the value of dollars held by the US government. Speculators began trading in their dollars for gold in September 1931. That created a run on the dollar. That is a lot of people selling the currency dollar at the same time. The stock market didn't recover for the next 25 years. People lost all confidence in Wall Street markets. The Fed raised interest rates again to preserve the dollar's value. That further restricted the availability of money for businesses. Due to all this, more bankruptcies followed. When the Fed did not increase the supply of money to combat deflation, investors withdrew all their deposits from the bank. The failure of the banks created more panic. The Fed ignored the bank's plight. This situation destroyed any consumers' remaining confidence in the financial institution. Most people withdrew their cash and put it under their mattress. This further decreased the money supply. Politics at the time of the Great Depression. Herbert Hoover, the 31st President of the United States, he served one term from 1929 to 1933. After the 1929 stock market crash, the Hoover administration attempted to mitigate the negative effects of the Great Depression but was unable to significantly improve the economy. In 1929, the stock market crash catalyzed the onset of the Great Depression, though Hoover has gained a reputation for deterring in the face of economic peril. His administration actually pursued measures that helped lay the basis for Roosevelt's New Deal. Hoover launched a massive public works program, part of which included funding for the construction of Hoover Dam on the Colorado River. His administration implemented stronger protections for labor and substantially increased federal subsidies for agriculture. Hoover also played a key role in passing the Glass-Steagall Act of 1932, which limited the activities of commercial banks in an attempt to stabilize the banking sector. However, many of these policies were not immediately effective, and some of the administration's action actually worsened the effects of the depression. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, for instance, which Hoover signed, reluctantly raised tariffs on thousands of imported goods and initiated a trade war between the United States and Europe, thereby leading to a global economic downturn. Although Hoover ran for re election in 1932, his inability to mitigate the negative economic consequences of the Great Depression had made him widely unpopular. He lost the election to Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt. Franklin D. Roosevelt and the Great Depression. Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt led the nation through the Great Depression. His signature domestic legislation, the New Deal, expanded the role of the federal government in nation's economy in an effort to address the challenges of the Great Depression. In 1932, run for presidency, Roosevelt asserted that he would help the forgotten man at the bottom of the economic pyramid and pledged himself to a new deal for the American people. In his first inaugural address, saying, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself," he sought to reassure the public amid the anxieties of the Great Depression. As president, he championed the series of federal legislative initiations known as the New Deal. The New Deal was not a blueprint for action, but was instead animated by a script, as Roosevelt said, of bold, persistent experimentation, in which he would take a method, try it. If it fails, admit it frankly and try another. On March 12, 1933, Roosevelt delivered the first of his live radio fireside chats. In the first chat, he spoke about the banking crisis and explained the action he and Congress had taken to address it. During his presidency, he delivered 30 fireside chats explaining to the public in reassuring tones and plain spoken language his New Deal policies and Second World War through the medium of radio. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. The New Deal created a broad range of federal government programs that sought to offer economic relief to the suffering regulate private industry, and grow the economy. The New Deal is often summed up by the three R's: relief for the unemployed, recovery of the economy through federal spending and job creation, and reform of capitalism by means of regulatory legislation and the creation of new social welfare programs. Roosevelt's New Deal expanded the size and scope of federal government considerably, and in doing so fundamentally reshaped American political culture around the principle that the government is responsible for the welfare of its citizens. As one historian has put it, before the 1930s, national political debate often revolved around the question whether the federal government should intervene in the economy. After the New Deal, the debate rested on how it should intervene. Phases of the New Deal. The first New Deal between 1933 and 1934. The first New Deal began in a whirlwind of legislative action called the First 100 Days. From March through June 1933, at Roosevelt's Congress passed legislation aimed at addressing the banking crisis, unemployment, and weak industrial performance, among other problems, through an alphabet soup of new laws and agencies. Among these, some important were the Agricultural Adjustment Act (AAA), which boosted agricultural prices by offering government subsidies to farmers to reduce output; the Civilian Conservation Corps (CCC), which employed young single men at federally funded jobs on government lands; the Federal Emergency Relief Act (FERA), which gave federal grants to states that funded salaries for government workers as well as local soup kitchens and other direct aid to poor programs; the National Recovery Act (NRA), which sought to boost businesses' profits and workers' wages by establishing industry by industry codes that set prices and wages, as well as guaranteeing workers the right to organize into unions; the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation (FDIC), which guaranteed individuals that money they deposited in a bank would be repaid to them by the federal government in the event that their bank went out of business. In 1934, Roosevelt supported the passage of the Securities and Exchange Commission, which brought important federal government oversight and regulation to the stock market. The second New Deal between 1935 and 1938. The second phase of the New Deal focused on increasing worker protection and building long lasting financial security for the Americans. Four of the most notable pieces of the legislation included the Works Progress Administration WPA, which employed millions of Americans in public works projects, from constructing bridges and roads to painting murals and writing plays; the Wanger Labor Relations Act, which guaranteed workers the right to form unions and bargain collectively; the Social Security Act, which required workers and employers to contribute through a payroll tax to the Social Security Trust Fund. That fund in turn makes monthly payments to retirees over the age of 65 as well as to long term disabled. The Fair Labor Standards Act, which mandated a 40-hour work week with time and a half for overtime, set an hourly minimum wage and restricted child labor. The legacy of the New Deal. Roosevelt's New Deal sought to reinvigorate the economy by stimulating consumer demand. The New Deal embraced federal deficit spending to promote economic growth, a fiscal approach that came to be associated with the British economist John Keynes. Keynes argued that government spending that put money in consumers' hand would allow them to buy products made in private sector. Then as employers sold more and more products, they would have the money to hire more and more workers who could afford to buy more and more products, and so on. In this way, Roosevelt and his supporters theorized the Great Depression's downward economic spiral could be reversed. The New Deal was only partially successful, however. The Supreme Court ruled against several New Deal initiatives in 1935, leading a frustrated Roosevelt to suggest expanding the Supreme Court to as many as 15 justices, a political misstep that would haunt him for the rest of his career. Despite the New Deal's lofty dreams, the United States only fully recovered from the Great Depression due to massive military spending brought on by the Second World War. Nevertheless, key elements in the New Deal with the US today, including federal regulation of wages, hours, child labor, and collective bargaining rights, as well as the social security system. Women in the Great Depression. There was one group of Americans who actually gained jobs during the Great Depression: women. From 1930 to 1940, the number of employed women in the United States rose to 24% from 10.5 million to 13 million. Though there have been steady increase in the workforce for decades, the financial pressures of the Great Depression drove women to seek employment in even greater numbers as male breadwinners lost their jobs. The 22% decline in marriage rates between 1929 and 1939 also created an increase in single women in search for employment. Women during the Great Depression had a strong advocate in First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who lobbied her husband for more women in the office, like Secretary of Labor Frances Perkins, the first woman to ever hold a cabinet position. Jobs available to women paid less but were more stable during the banking crisis. Nursing, teaching, domestic work, they were supplanted by an increase in secretarial roles in FDR's rapidly expanding government. But there was a catch: over 25% of the National Recovery Administration's wage code set lower wages for women, and the jobs created under the WPA confined women to fields like sewing, nursing, and paid them less than the men. Married women faced an additional hurdle. By 1940, 26 states had placed restrictions known as marriage bars on their employment, as working wives were perceived as taking away jobs from able bodied men, even if in practice they were occupying jobs men would not want and doing them would pay them far less. Global spread of the Great Depression. The stock market crash of October 1929 led directly to the Great Depression in Europe. When stocks plummeted on the New York Stock Exchange, the world noticed immediately, although financial leaders in England, as in the US, vastly underestimated the extent of the crisis that would ensue. It soon became clear that the world's economies were far more interconnected than ever. The effects of the disruption to the global system of financing, trading, and production, and the subsequent meltdown of the American economy were soon felt throughout Europe. The gold standard was primary transmission mechanism of the Great Depression. Even countries that did not face bank failures and a monetary contraction firsthand were forced to join the deflationary policy, since higher interest rates in countries that did so lead to a gold outflow in the countries with lower interest rate. Under the gold standard, countries that lost gold but nevertheless wanted to maintain the gold standard had to permit their money supply to decrease and the domestic price level to decline. The Great Depression hit Germany hard. The impact of the Wall Street crash forced American banks to end the new loans that had been funding the repayments under the Dawes Plan and Young Plan. The financial crisis escalated out of control and mid 1931, starting with the collapse of the credit installed in Vienna in May. This put heavy pressure on Germany, which was already in a political turmoil. Some economic studies have indicated that just as the downturn was spread worldwide by the rigidities of the gold standard, it was suspending gold convertibility or devaluing the currency in terms of gold. That did most of the recovery possible. Every major currency left that gold standard during the Great Depression. Great Britain was the first to do so, facing speculative attacks on the pound and depleting gold reserves. In September 1931, the Bank of England ceased exchanging pound notes for gold and the pound was floated on foreign exchange markets. Great Britain, Japan, and other countries left the gold standard in 1931. Countries such as Italy and US remained on the gold standard into 1932 or 1933, while a few countries in the so-called gold bloc led by France and including Poland, Belgium, Switzerland stayed on the standard until 1935 and 1936. According to later analysis, how soon a country left the gold standard reliably predicted its economic recovery. For example, Great Britain, which left the gold standard in 1931, recovered much earlier than France, and Belgium, which remained on the gold much longer. Australia. Australia's dependence on agricultural and industrial exports meant it was one of the hardest hit developed countries. Falling export demand and commodity prices placed massive downward pressures on the wages. Unemployment reached a record high of 29% in 1932, with incidents of civil unrest becoming common. After 1932, an increase in wool and meat prices led to a gradual recovery. Canada, harshly affected by both the global economic downturn and the Dust Bowl, Canadian industrial production had by 1932 fallen to only 58% of its 1929 figure, the second lowest level in the world after the United States and well behind other countries such as Britain, which fell to only 83% of the 1929 level. Total national income fell to 56% of the 1929 level, again worse than any country apart from the United States. Unemployment reached 27% at the depth of the depression in 1933. Chile. The League of Nations labeled Chile the country hardest hit by the Great Depression because 80% of the government revenue came from exports of copper and nitrates, which were in low demand. Chile initially felt the impact of the Great Depression in 1930 when the GDP dropped 14%, mining income declined 27%, and export earnings fell 28%. By 1932, GDP had shrunk to less than half of what it has been in 1929, exacting a terrible toll in unemployment and business failures. Influenced profoundly by the Great Depression, many government leaders promoted the development of local industry in an effort to insulate the economy from future external shocks. China. China was largely unaffected by the depression, mainly by having stuck to the silver standards. However, the United States Silver Purchase Act of 1934 created an intolerable demand on China's silver coins, and so, in the end, the silver standard was officially abandoned in 1935 in favor of the four Chinese national banks. Legal note issues. China and the British colony of Hong Kong, which followed the suit in regard in September 1935, would be the last to abandon the silver standard. In addition, the nationalist government also acted energetically to modernize the legal and penal systems, stabilize prices, amortize debt, reform the banking and currency system, build railroads and highways, improve public health facility, legislate against traffic in narcotics, and augment industrial and agricultural production. The depression was relatively mild. Unemployment peaked under 5%. Fall in production was at most 20% below the 1929 output in France. There was no banking crisis in France. However, the depression in France had drastically affected the local economy and partly explains the February 6, 1934 riots and even more the formation of Popular Front led by SFIO socialist who won the elections in 1936. Ultra-nationalist groups also saw increased popularity although democracy prevailed in World War II. France's relatively high degree of self-sufficiency meant the damage was considerably less than in neighboring states like Germany. Greece. The Bank of Greece tried to adopt deflationary policies to stave off the crises that were going on in other countries, but these largely failed. For a brief period, the drachma was pegged to the US dollar, uh, but this was unsustainable given the country's large trade deficit and only long-term effects of this were Greece's foreign exchange reserve being almost totally wiped out in 1932. Remittances from abroad declined sharply and the value of drachma began to plummet from 77 drachma to the to the dollar in March 1931 to 111 drachma to the dollar in April 1931. India. How much India was affected has been hotly debated. Historians have argued that the Great Depression slowed long term industrial development. Apart from two sectors, jute and coal, the economy was little affected. However, there were some negative impacts on the jute industry as world demand fell and prices plunged. Otherwise, conditions were fairly stable. Local markets in agriculture and small scale industry showed modest gains. Iceland post World War I prosperity came to an end with the outbreak of the Great Depression. The depression hit Iceland hard as the value of exports plummeted. The total value of Icelandic exports fell from 74 million kroner in 1929 to 48 million in 1932 and was not to rise again to the pre 1930 level until after 1939. Government interference in the economy increased, imports were regulated, trade with foreign currency was monopolized by the state owned banks, and loan capital was largely distributed by the state regulated funds. Due to the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War, which cut Iceland's export of saltfish by half, the depression lasted in Iceland until the outbreak of the World War II when prices of fish exports soared. Japan. The Great Depression did not strongly affect Japan. The Japanese economy shrank by 8% during 1929 and 31. Japan Finance Minister Takashi was the first to implement what have come to be identified as the Keynesian economic policies, first by large fiscal stimulus involving deficit spending and second by devaluing the currency. Takashi used the Bank of Japan to sterilize the deficit spending and minimize resulting inflationary pressures. Econometric studies have identified the fiscal stimulus as especially effective. The devaluation of the currency had an immediate effect. Japanese textiles began to displace British textile in export market. The deficit spending proved to be the most profound and went into purchase of ammunitions for the armed forces. By 1933, Japan was already out of depression. By 1934, Takashi realized that the economy was in danger of overheating and to avoid inflation moved to reduce the deficit spending that went towards ammunitions. The deficit spending had a transformative effect on Japan. Japan's industrial production doubled during the 1930s. Further, in 1929, the list of the largest firms in Japan was dominated by light industries, especially textile companies. Many of Japan's automakers, such as Toyota, have their roots in the textile industry. By 1940, light industry had been displaced by the heavy industry as the largest firms inside the Japanese economy. Netherlands. From roughly 1931 to 1937, the Netherlands suffered a deep and exceptionally long depression. The depression was partly caused by the after effects of the stock market crash of 1929 in the US, partly by internal factors in the Netherlands. Government policy, especially the very late dropping of the gold standard, played a role in prolonging the depression. The Great Depression in Netherlands led to some political instability and riots and can be linked to rise of the Dutch fascist political party NSB. The depression in Netherlands eased off somewhat at the end of 1936 when the government finally dropped the gold standard, but real economic stability did not return until after World War II. Thank you.